after this, when he left this planet in 1977, so for more than 38 years, we have been without his physical presence. But still, the movement he established is going on with full force. So much so that during his time he established in 10 years, 11 years, 108 temples, and now there are 600 plus temple centers, restaurants, farms, and communities. So, for introduction of Srila Prabhupada, we call him Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master of the whole world. But that doesn't give you much information, so next phrase, he wrote every letter he replied to his disciples or any person they wrote was your ever well-wisher. That is the eternally well-wisher of every living entity. That is very rare to find in this world. If we individually ask how many ever well-wisher we have, many of us will come up with number as close as 0. But for all of us, Prabhupada is our ever well-wisher. Then also he is a personality who never forgot Krishna in his whole life. That is amazing to find anybody in this world for even a fraction of a second from birth until they left the planet, they forgot even for 1 second Krishna. Why? Because in one book, conversation was written by Srimati Gita Devi Sharaf. She expressed that how she was instructed and experienced that Srila Prabhupada was sent by Krishna himself to preach all around the world, especially in English language. And then there are many, many more wonderful glorification and qualities we'll hear by reading these Vyasa Puja messages from all around the world, from the leaders, temples, dignitaries. So this Vyasa Puja, we will try to understand for those who may not have heard in detail. So I'd like to briefly read through the meaning of Vyasa Puja. God is supremely conscious, individual. Connection with the absolute truth depends solely on his sweet will, which God expresses by sending his agent, the spiritual master. When one is qualified with transcendental faith and surrender, the identity and function of Sri Guru in the form of Srila Vyasa, Bhagavan Shri Krishna has revealed the hidden meaning of the Vedas to the ignorant conditioned souls of Kali Yuga by compiling Srimad Bhagavatam. The sunlight spotless Purana, while in a state of samadhi, Srila Vyasa realized the esoteric teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam Purana by the mercy of his spiritual master, Sri Narad Muni, who learned the spiritual science from Lord Brahma. Vyasa is the greatest Acharya because He was directly empowered by the Supreme Lord to make the Vedic wisdom available in the present age. Without Vyasa, he would be nowhere, wallowing in the mud of ignorance, trapped in the darkness and illusion of material sense gratification. Srila Vyasa is the divine propagator, a Shaktavis avatar, in whom divine power of transcendental knowledge has been infused. Vyasa has been directly empowered by the absolute truth to preach the word of God. Sri Guru, the spiritual master, is a living spokesman, the contemporary representative of Srila Vyasa. The enlightened spiritual discourses given by the bona fide Guru are based on his constant and uninterrupted realizations of the activity of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, as described by Sri Vyasa in Srimad Bhagavatam. The true Guru is an enlightened guide, the merciful master, the Messiah of harmony. He not only teaches the science of God, but he demonstrates practically by his pure action that he is the dearest servitor of the Supreme Lord. Sri Guru thinks, speaks and acts only in the terms of eternal relationship with the Absolute Truth. Sadguru has perfect knowledge of personal Godhead and constantly associates with the Lord in the most direct and intimate bond of the divine love. The divine guide is fully competent to dispel the darkness of ignorance and remove all doubts from his disciple. He is capable of delivering his disciple to the beautiful lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna in the spiritual sky. Sri Guru has the power granted by God to establish the bewildered conditioned soul in his eternal position as a loving servitor of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Sri Guru manifests in two forms: the quiet director or Paramatma within the heart, and the external preceptor who teaches us by realized knowledge and spotless behavior. Both Gurus help bewildered soul reach spiritual perfection. However, in the conditioned state, one cannot hear the wise counsel of the inner guide. Therefore, the Paramatma's external manifestation, Sri Guru, is our only hope. Acharyas say the spiritual master is Sri Krishna's Krishna Shakti Murti, the very form of Lord's mercy and love, freely accessible to the suffering souls. Sri Guru is the spiritual counterpart of the famous ATM machine, which leading banks scatter around major city to offer anytime money to eager customers thirsting for wealth. Similarly, to anyone at any time and any place, the spiritual master can give the true wealth of Shri Krishna's eternal loving service. Therefore, Sri Guru is a Krishna conscious walking ATM machine offering anytime mercy. The mercy of Sri Guru is freely available to all who are willing to accept it. Being completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord, Sri Guru is always engaged in Krishna's service, and he helps others to do the same. The first Vyasa Puja celebration, Sri Vrindavandas Thakur describes how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instituted the first Vyasa Puja ceremony in 1509 AD through Sri Nityanand Prabhu in Shivastandan, Mayapur. This is described in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam, Madhya Kanda, chapter 5. Srivas Pandit, the head priest for the function, gave Lord Nityananda a flower garland to offer to a painting of Vyasadeva. Holding the garland in his beautiful lotus hand, Nityanand Prabhu hesitated and began glancing here and there, as if he was looking for someone. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lord Nityananda offered the garland to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instead. At that moment, Lord Chaitanya immediately manifested his sixth-armed form, Shadabhuja. Thus, Nityanand Prabhu completed Vyasa Puja ceremony by offering garland to the personality from whom everything emanates and whose empowered incarnation is Sri Vyasadeva. By this act, Nityanand Mahaprabhu established the real meaning of Vyasa Puja by worshipping the Supreme Lord Himself in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Gauranga is the Guru of Sri Nityanand Prabhu. This is the basis of worship performed by Lord Nityananda. Therefore, the worship of Vyasadeva is actually the worship of Lord Gauranga in the form of the present Acharya. Although Sri Krishna and Sri Baladev are identical, with Sri Chaitanya Dev and Lord Sri Nityananda Prabhu, their activities are different. Nitai and Gaura are the Supreme Master, the Supreme Lords, yet they play the role of devotees. The dual lords act as devotees to teach their servants the art of devotional service. Thus, in this pastime from Chaitanya Bhagavat, one Lord, Sri Nityananda, is teaching us that the ultimate recipient of worship of Vyasadeva or the spiritual master is the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev. Sri Nityanand Prabhu, Lord Balaram, is the ultimate source of the spiritual function of the Acharya. In the scriptures, Sri Krishna tells Uddhava that Acharya is the manifestation of himself. One should know the Acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27. If Sri Guru is not regarded as identical with the Supreme Lord, the worship of the Acharya is not properly performed, and the said worshipper will not realize the true purport of the Vedas. Only unto that great soul who has implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master is the real import of Vedic knowledge revealed. Lord Balaram is non-different from Lord Sri Nityananda Prabhu. However, Lord Nityananda plays a unique role in that he is the connecting link between all conditioned souls and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is non-different from Radha Govinda. The conditioned soul have no access to Lord Balaram in the spiritual world, but here in the material world, everyone can access the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Shri Guru is empowered by Shri Nityananda Prabhu to save the fallen souls from the clutches of Maya. As Nityananda Prabhu's delegated authority, the spiritual master liberates the conditioned souls from the material world by engaging them in the direct service of Lord Nityananda. The story of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami approaching Sri Chaitanya shows that necessity of first receiving the mercy of Sri Guru and Lord Nityananda before one can attain the service of Bhagavan Shri Krishna Chaitanya Dev. Shri Vyasa Puja begins with obeisances. In Bhajan Rahasya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions Pancharatrika Mantra, Aim Guru Devaya Namaha, as the seed mantra for worshipping the spiritual master. The word Namaha is also uttered by all disciples whenever they offer respect unto the lotus feet of their respective spiritual master. But exactly what does the word Namaha means? In general, Namaha means I am offering obeisances unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev. On the deeper level, Namaha means to submit oneself with the meditation. I am giving up my worldly vanity and false ego. I renounce the false sense of being the supreme controller and enjoyer. The word Namaha means saying no to false ego, killing the false identity, and fully surrendering to the mastership and control of God standing before you as Sri Guru. Renunciation of one's pride is actually the first object to be offered in one's worship of Sri Guru. Therefore, the act of offering obeisances to the spiritual master means to give up the pride of thinking oneself the doer, possessor, and enjoyer of anything in this world. The real Vyasa Puja begins here. The moment the disciple realizes this and acts solely for the pleasure of Sri Guru, he engages in the true worship and eternal service of his spiritual master. I pray that someday I can fall at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, and with the full backing of my dedicated heart, utter this phrase: Dearest Gurudev, please accept my most respectful and humble obeisances. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So now anybody has prepared Vyasa Puja message for Srila Prabhupada, they are most welcome. After I read this particular message from our GBC, Anuttam Prabhu, those who would like to say, please come and sit behind me, and at least 2-3 people so we can save some time. It's 5:30. So this is a message from Anuttam Das, our governing body commissioner. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances in the dust of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, with each year that passes, it becomes more and more obvious how dependent we are on your mercy, your teachings, and your example. Thank you for continuing to guide us and nurture us. Thank you for teaching us via thousands of pages of instruction in your books. Thank you for appearing in your murti form in temples worldwide, where you continue to accept our obeisances and prayers. Thank you for guiding us via hundreds of recorded lectures in which you at once plead, coach, embrace, and call out to each of us to come closer to you and to Lord Krishna. Thank you for instructing us to call out the Lord's name with feeling, to surrender to the Supreme Beloved, to give up all our foolish attempts at capturing happiness through our senses, and to stop blindly following our rebellious materialistic minds. You are so kind to be ever present for us, Srila Prabhupada. Years after years, you are our constant friend, guru, and example amidst the ocean of material distress. Srila Prabhupada, as this age of quarrel gains momentum, we see that all over the world, polarization and hatred between people and the tribes and nations is increasing. We are trying to realize and share your message, the message of our Acharya, that world belongs to Krishna. Ishvara idam sarvam. And that peace will only come through living cooperatively as children of God. But it is hard. People are so overcome by bitterness and spite. By your grace only, Srila Prabhupada, can we have the opportunity to overcome that darkness. By your grace only, Srila Prabhupada, can we become beacon of light as a society of Vaishnavas, as individual devotee, as citizens, mothers, fathers, neighbors, employers, employees, as friends and colleagues. But sadly, the world around us impels us to hurt ourselves and others. The world impels us to cheat. The world impels us to be full of hate and anger and jealous and envy. It is practically demanding that we do so. It is tempting us to do so. It is prodding us to do so. But you have given us the secret to rising beyond all that, the Lord's holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Srila Prabhupada, there are so many religious and spiritual people in this world who do not practice what they preach. It is so common that young people have given up on elders and institutions. They hanker for authenticity. They find instead hypocrisy. Srila Prabhupada, you were and are the perfect manifestation of authenticity. This is one of your greatest quality, one that attracts thousands and today attracts millions to take shelter of you and follow you. We too need to become authentic, not shallow and not proud. We need to become humble Vaishnavas, trying our utmost to respect all others, to be kind to all others, and to be servant of all others. This year, as a part of ISKCON Leadership Seminar, being Guru in ISKCON, the GBC Guru Service Committee members felt obliged to add to the course which is mandatory for devotees taking up the service of initiating Guru. Several hours of instruction about spiritual abuse. Why did we do that? How can a spiritual organization have abuse, and why would ISKCON need to teach about it, warn against it, guard against it? Some may argue that our needing to do so proves that ISKCON has deviated from the path of purity. But in reality, the opposite is true. The fact that we take on spiritual abuse openly, that we discuss it, teach about it, and try to minimize it, if not eliminate it, is the proof of how your pure example continues to motivate us. This is the dilemma for faces a sincere soul on the path of bhakti. We are by nature pure, an eternal servant of God, endeavoring again to serve Him. We take on greater and greater responsibilities to share His message, but every day, every moment, and every turn, we remain vulnerable to forgetfulness and trying again to exploit others and world around us. Srila Prabhupada, it is because of your purity and the maturing of our faith in that purity that we can teach about spiritual abuse, how to avoid it and how to overcome it, and how we must always be on guard so that our controlling and exploitative tendency may not overwhelm us, even as we try our best to love and serve the Lord. Srila Prabhupada, you give us the strength to resist these tendencies and the honesty to pray for protection against such tendency. You have taught us that the soul is originally pure and that the soul is meant to love God, that each one of your followers must enthusiastically carry that message forward. But we must ever be on guard and never forget that each one of us is very small and Maya, illusion, is very strong. Armed with the knowledge and with the awareness of our need for protection at every moment, we pray that all devotees, starting with ourselves and including even the topmost leaders, may be empowered with a deep understanding of our own limitations. We must have the courage to say to ourselves and to others, yes, I can be a messenger on behalf of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna. But yes, I can also deviate and harm others if I am not careful. I must be trained and must be held accountable. I must hear every day from our founder Acharya, from my gurus, from my elders and my peers to help me remember that I am but a humble servant. Most importantly, we must remember that we are completely dependent upon the mercy of the Lord and our founder Acharya. It is your example, Srila Prabhupada, your teachings, your grace and your authenticity that keep us safe. Srila Prabhupada, thank you for being present in our lives, in your books, in your letters, in your murtis, and in your society, and for reminding us again and again to never mistreat others or misuse our power, our knowledge, our influence, or our status. We are always but insignificant servant of you and Lord Krishna. Please keep us eternally in the shelter of your lotus feet. Your servant Anuttam Das. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Now I'd like to request Sriman Prabhu, right in time, to say.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Sahibale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Varani Kichari. Namaste Sandipati Viskachadesha Jai. Srila Prabhupada, as I always pray to you, as part of my morning sadhana, thank you for giving your mercy to so many people, including me, for without which I don't know where I'd be or what I'd be doing. Thank you for writing so many books, which I've greatly taken advantage of. Thank you for establishing so many temples. And thank you for your global influence around the world. And kindly grant me your blessings so I can continue to advance in spiritual knowledge and spiritual wisdom, and preparing myself for entering the spiritual world. And grant me your blessings so I can continue to help spread Krishna consciousness, your glories, the glories of Vedic culture, the glories of the holy names, and your mission to as many people as I can reach. So this is what I've been working on, and fortunately, due to your mercy, I've had a few victories, you might say, over this past year. It's been very interesting. A year ago, I won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hindu Mandir Empowerment Council for the 50 years, practically 50 years of temple management I've been engaged in, which kind of blows my mind, because 50 years, boy, that puts an age on me, doesn't it? You know, so anyway, a little experience there along the way. Then, after that, I won the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Vishva Hindu Parishad of America, which is a global organization for the advancement of Hindu culture and Vedic traditions. And then just when I was thinking, well, you know, this is about as far as I'm going to go. I'm just about done with all my preaching work. I'm pretty much getting washed up at this time, like an old cow putting out the pasture. You know, just bearing with it the rest of my days as much as I can, to the tolerance of the devotees in the temple. And lo and behold, I get nominated and awarded the Padma Shri Award from the government of India, which is the 4th highest civilian award that the government of India gives to anybody for distinguished service. Then all of a sudden my preaching work and whatever I was doing goes up to a whole new level. Unfortunately, during that presentation, during that event, I was able to give interviews to the Doordarshan television network, Times of India, ANI network, and in those interviews I gave all the potential that I've acquired simply to the mercy of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. So that was a very, very rewarding experience, and very unexpected, but very grateful for it at the same time, because I was not expecting that at all. But I could go on, but I want to give a little bit different presentation today and explain a little bit about 2 different aspects of Srila Prabhupada. One is his sense of humor, and one is a more mystical side, where you could say that he performed a few miracles. You know, some religions, they feel that a saint is judged by how many miracles they provide. But Prabhupada also was able to do a few things that most people may not be aware of. But anyway, as far as his humorous side goes, this is a segment from Dinabandhu's book on Vraja Lila. And he explains here that there's another interesting story connected with Govardhan. And the Srila Prabhupada had a friend who lived just near Krishna Balaram Mandir named Vishwambar Dayal, affectionately known as Bhagavaji. He was especially friendly with our Srila Prabhupada, engaged him as a manager. Prabhupada engaged him as a manager of the temple to help the foreign devotees who were always being cheated by the various vendors, the local vendors, because they knew they could, charge more than they had to. And so Prabhupada put Bhagaji in charge of managing the temple to prevent that. So Bhagaji also used to entertain Srila Prabhupada with humorous stories, and they would laugh heartily together, enjoying the humor. There was one particular story Srila Prabhupada was very fond of, and repeatedly requested Bhagaji to recount it. So the story goes like this. There was a nice Vaishnava named Ramdas, who was the station manager at the Mathura Junction. Later he retired, and he began to pursue his devotional service. He was a sincere Vaishnava, but he had one bad habit of being addicted to tea drinking. So, one day, Ramdas would often go to visit his good friend named Krishnadas, who was doing his bhajan at Govardhan Hill. One day, while visiting Krishnadas, Ramdas mentioned, "I'm going very soon to see Sri Krishna." Surprised, Krishnadas says, "How's that?" Ramdas replied, "Well, now I'm quite old and I could leave at any time." Krishnadas said, "Acha," meaning, "Okay, I understand." So, but after a few days, Ramdas again went to meet Krishnadas at Govardhan. This time, Krishnadas said, "Sri Krishna is very worried." Ramdas inquired, "Why is he worried?" Krishnadas replied, "Last time you said that you're going to see Sri Krishna, so he's worried." Ramdas anxiously asked, "Why is he worried?" And Krishnadas plainly said, "Sri Krishna is very worried that you're coming and he's not keeping any Britannia tea biscuits to his Goloka Vrindavan." And Prabhupada would laugh and laugh repeatedly. He asked Bhagaji to recount that story. So, I thought that was, because oftentimes when we're praying to Prabhupada, we're very, very serious. But Prabhupada also had a whole other side to him. And so this kind of gives a little indication as to what that other side to him was all about. That he wasn't always so serious as many of us seem to think. There's another side to Prabhupada that many people don't know about. And this was what I call the more mystical side. And there's a few stories I heard. One was from, I forget the devotee's name, but he was once the president of the BBT, the Indian BBT. And he was explaining one time that they were waiting for Prabhupada, I think in the Mumbai or maybe it was the Calcutta airport. And Prabhupada had just gotten off a plane and he was coming up the escalator. And he was coming up the escalator, he was coming up, and then the escalator stops, but Prabhupada kept on going. And then gradually came back down a little distance away. And he looked at this and he thought, but my eyes are fooling me. This is not real. This is not what I saw. Something else is happening here. But a few years later, he met another devotee who was at that same event. I think it was Brahmananda, if I'm not mistaken. And so he asked him, well, when I was there, I saw Prabhupada come up, ascend the escalator, and he kept on going. And then came back, gradually came down, a few feet later. And Brahmananda said, yes, I saw the same thing, which verified that he wasn't simply seeing things, but it was actually something that was perceivable. Everybody saw it. So it showed Prabhupada was not an ordinary man. Like we say, he's a Vaikuntha man. He's simply from the spiritual world, come down to give us a spiritual vibration. So another story was told to me by my friend, an old friend, who's passed away now, named Shravananda, who used to be a resident here in Detroit. And he explained to me one time that during the Mayapur festival, in the early days of ISKCON, many of the devotees in Mayapur were getting sick. They couldn't participate in the programs, they couldn't go on bar ground, they couldn't do service, and they were simply huddled up, crouched, on the floor, sick somewhere, making trips to the bathroom. So Prabhupada found out about this and he said, they're getting sick. Then call the Kaviraj, the doctor. So he called the Kaviraj. The Kaviraj made up this formula to help the devotees get better. But then Prabhupada said, give me the formulas. So he made up all these, doses for all the devotees. So as Prabhupada got the doses for the devotees, he handed them out personally to each and every devotee who was sick. And within half an hour, everybody was better. Like, for no, miraculous reason. And Shavananda said they talked about it to other devotees and they were convinced that it was not so much the formula by the Kaviraj, but it was the potency of Prabhupada who put in that potency from himself into the formula that cured everybody. Another example is that one time Brahmananda, he was the president of the New York Temple. And he had gotten really, really sick. And one night, the phone rang. And he had to practically crawl to the phone to be able to answer it. And lo and behold, it was Prabhupada. Prabhupada was calling from San Francisco, saying that, things are working out, that I can come to New York. I'm going to come and visit the New York Temple. So they were talking a bit, and Ramananda said to Prabhupada, I'm really, really sick. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to help with this. Prabhupada said, you're sick? Don't worry. You'll get better. So they kept talking about the arrangements that needed to be made so Prabhupada could come to New York. And as they kept talking, 20 minutes went by, something like that. Ramananda hung up the phone, and he stood up and realized he's completely better. Completely cured of whatever the sickness was, just by the association and the intent of Prabhupada. So this is a few areas where some of us may not have heard these things before, but there was a whole other side of Prabhupada too, the mystical side I call it. Whether that word is actually applicable or not, I don't know, but I call it the more mystical side of Srila Prabhupada, where, he was able to do things that many people would not expect or many people do not even know. So this is all part of the glory of Srila Prabhupada. So this is one thing I wanted to mention today. And I have another thing to present. This is on behalf of Chintamani Dasi. She was not able to come today. She was really hoping she could be here. Are we having trouble with the chairs or something? Okay, let's wait until she gets situated. We're all set now? Okay. I don't like to interrupt anybody's arrangement. So anyway, this is from Chintamani. And so I told her I would read it on her behalf. And this was just posted on Nandavats this morning. So if anybody needs to read it or anything, you can read it there as well. But this is remembering Vyasa Puja with Srila Prabhupada in Japan of 1970. So everyone always wanted Srila Prabhupada to come to their temple, especially if it was Janmashtami or in Vyasa Puja. We often didn't know when Srila Prabhupada would go to next. Sometimes there wasn't much warning. It was either by a letter or phone call to our Japanese temple that we found out the good news that there had been a change of plans and His Divine Grace would be coming to Japan, along with His newly initiated sannyasis. Our temple was a very small house, as many Japanese houses are. Now we have some elaborate temples in ISKCON, but back then, a temple was usually just a house in which we put an altar with deities or some framed pictures. And that's where many of the temples started, really. Just a little house. But then last-minute preparations were made, and we got beautiful gold and silk cloth with a golden thread pattern that Japanese women traditionally use as an obi, or a sash that goes around the waist of a kimono and ties in the back, to make a covering for the cushion on Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. We didn't have altars or a Vyasa-san from India. Everything was made by hand and very simple. We already had an altar with Lord Jagannath deities, who now also had a simple but nice outfit. We also found an apartment to rent for the time Srila Prabhupada would be in Tokyo for him to stay in. So in 1969, Srila Prabhupada had sent Sudama, Bali Mardan, and myself to open the first temple in Japan. At first, we were in Kyoto, and then Tokyo. We had no contacts there, we didn't speak Japanese, but we had faith in Srila Prabhupada. He wanted a temple in Japan very much, and by going on Harinam Sankirtan almost daily, and having the Sunday love feast, we now had some interested students coming, and a few older people. It had been over a year since I had last seen Srila Prabhupada, and I was very excited to see him again. I was the only female devotee for all that time, so it was not always easy. By this time, Bali Mardan had gone to help open a temple in Australia. And now Purijan Prabhu was here for a while before he went to start a temple in Hong Kong. A couple of brahmacharis came for a while to help us, which was Amoga and Satyabrata. Amoga then went to help out in Australia. And then Bruce, an ethnic Japanese from Canada, was regularly coming, who is now Banu Swami and lives in India. We had a few steady Japanese people coming and a few people from other countries also, as Tokyo has a wide variety of people. When Srila Prabhupada came, he brought with him Tamal Krishna, who was not yet a sannyasi, along with Kirtanananda and the newly initiated Swamis, who were Madhavisa, Devananda, and Kartikeya. They had to be crammed into a couple of small rooms, and had to sleep outside, and I had to sleep outside in our small car. But so what? Now we could personally have the association of Srila Prabhupada. On Janmashtami, I helped Kirtananda and Kartikeya cook a feast for Srila Prabhupada and Lord Jagannath, as well as the next day for Vyasa Puja. You would not believe how tiny the kitchen was. Then the feast was sent over to Srila Prabhupada's apartment, and I would anxiously await the news as to whether he liked it. And by Krishna's mercy, he did. On Vyasa Puja Day, we had each prepared our own offerings to be read to Srila Prabhupada. He came and seemed pleased with our simple, small temple room and sat on the new cushion. I was nervous to read my short offering, but somehow got through it. Now it was time for us to offer pushpa, or flowers, to our guru. But it did not quite go that way. Looking back at this fiasco, I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was not funny at all. Most of us were new to celebrating Vyasa Puja. Somehow or other, someone thought pushpa was a rice dish that we used to make. I think it was called pushpana rice. So when it was time to individually offer flowers to Srila Prabhupada, we did not have them, and instead we had rice. So whose idea this was, I don't know, but Srila Prabhupada got very upset and left, going back to his apartment. You can imagine what that must be. The sannyasis looked very downcast. What to do? Later, some of them went to Srila Prabhupada to try and rectify the situation. I only heard of what happened secondhand, so I will have to paraphrase what Srila Prabhupada said. The main point was that he had just initiated new sannyasis, and no one had come to ask him the proper way to celebrate Vyasa Puja. And if the leaders of the movement did not get it right, then there was no hope for the rest of our society. The good news was that he was going to come again the next day to give us a chance to celebrate Vyasa Puja correctly. So we got flowers, lots of flowers. I got to help cook again, and when Srila Prabhupada showed up, he was smiling as if nothing bad had happened. What a relief. He knew how to get a point across so we would remember. Srila Prabhupada at this time was also meeting with the Dai Nippon printers, where our magazines and books were printed before it was switched over to the U.S. And at that time, the Krishna book was just about ready to be printed as well. So this is some of the things that happened in Japan. So all glories to the merciful Srila Prabhupada, who is still looking after all of us. Never give up on this Bhakti Yoga path, even though challenges may come. Hare Krishna. And that is from Chintamani. So anyway, that gives you a few opportunities to see in different sides of Srila Prabhupada's personality, his character, and how he acted and interacted with other devotees. So thank you very much. Once again, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Anybody else would like to say anything? Please come forward quickly. Yes. You sit either in the chair or in the mat. Anybody else? Please sit down here next. We have some space.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to your divine grace. My first connection with ISKCON was through Discover Yourself sessions, where I began to see life in a completely new light. Then by tasting prasadam, reading your books, and hearing your lectures, I felt such deep inspiration. Your words are so simple, but yet so powerful. They directly relate to our day-to-day struggles and give strength to live with higher purpose. They are a constant source of motivation and hope for me. Prabhupada, the greatest gifts you have given to this world are ISKCON and your books, which guide us step by step on the path back to Godhead. Through them, I have received knowledge, encouragement, and a spiritual family. My heart's desire now is to be part of your preaching mission, to share these gifts with others, so they can also experience the same joy, peace, and direction that I have found through your mercy. Please bless me to stay always connected to your teachings and be a small instrument in spreading your message. All glories to Srila. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Prabhu. Would you like to say? Please.
I was reading today. Prabhupada in Nectar Devotion said, Krishna se tomara Krishna dikepara tomara shakti ajay. Prabhupada said, this is a fact. If you want Krishna, then you have to approach a pure devotee of Krishna. He can give you, he can deliver you. If one is a Krishna devotee, he can deliver Krishna. He can say, take him, here is Krishna. That is the special prerogative of a devotee. So, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, I came to learn of Krishna, came to love Krishna, and by His mercy, I'm getting service so that I can end the madness of this material life. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for all you've done for so many people around the world.
Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani There's Krishna Shri Mani Pastra Panchakam Palasendam Patitana Devyo Vaishnavevyo Srila Prabhupada's glories are unlimited and incalculable, just like trying to quantify the brightness of the sun. It's impossible to contextualize the glories of Srila Prabhupada. By any measure, spiritually or even materially, he's the most accomplished personality to ever walk the face of this planet.
He tried.
He performed things that, as Srila Prabhupada said, are still miracles today. And to see that his movement is growing and actually accelerating without his physical presence is something we never see, even in material terms. When founders of corporations leave, there's always a fallout. And if there is a resurgence, it's always on the basis of something new. But this movement is growing on the basis of Srila Prabhupada's philosophy and his teachings. And to the extent that we've practiced as it is, as he gave it to us, things manifest. And so it's not through innovation or newness that this movement is growing, but it is through the growth of our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and instructions. And this is his extreme potency. And so I just wanted to pick two of the many qualities Srila Prabhupada had, and as a grandson of Srila Prabhupada, disciple, we begged to Srila Prabhupada, because as we always hear from Srila Prabhupada disciples that he's even more compassionate to his grand disciples than to his own. So I'm taking advantage of such an opportunity. Because Srila Prabhupada exhibited extraordinary patience in his establishing his movement. Patience that I don't think we can even begin to understand. We live in an instant society where if something we are endeavoring to accomplish doesn't happen, we just give up. But Srila Prabhupada, convinced and fully empowered on the instructions of his spiritual master, showed extreme patience and tolerance to establish this movement. And if you read Srila Prabhupada and Amrita, all throughout the journey, we just wonder, what if he had given up? And there were thousands of instances and opportunities, whether it was, his endeavors in India failing, his efforts to produce back to Godheads and distribute them in Delhi and passing out in the ditch due to heat stroke, whether it was his Jhansi League being, thwarted by other forces, his efforts to come to America, even getting his PIO stamp was such an endeavor. Every step he took, he faced obstacles. And then, of course, the journey to America. None of us would have even thought to start that journey. And about 2 days after that journey, I would have been off that boat. And he endured such difficulty. And then coming to America, we celebrate his amazing glories from New York City and then going to San Francisco. But if you want to see what it means to be determined and steadfast, read the first 2 years of Srila Prabhupada's experience in New York, particularly 1965 and 1966. Just actually gut-wrenching. How much Srila Prabhupada struggled to bring forth to us this opportunity to connect back to our eternal Father, Srila Prabhupada. And, his manuscripts were stolen. He was living in an office building, no windows. It was worse than a jail cell. It had no bathroom even. He had to walk 2 blocks uptown to use the washroom. These are the circumstances that he endured. And I think to myself, I don't have this patience. If something I'm trying to work on doesn't work, I just give up. Just forget it. Krishna's plan. So I'm begging to Srila Prabhupada that I could just have one tiny, tiny fraction of your perseverance and your patience and tolerance to carry forth this mission that was given to you by your spiritual master, and that we can carry it forward for your glories, and glories that will continue to grow for thousands of years. We are in the highlight, the heyday of Srila Prabhupada's movement, and each day is growing larger and larger, and it will continue for another 10,000 years. And so praying that we can stay in his footsteps. The second quality, so the first is his patience and tolerance. And then, relatedly, just his steadfast energy. Sometimes we wonder, when we can do this service, when we can, Krishna willing. Krishna is always willing. But Srila Prabhupada showed us we have to put forth so much effort and energy. His schedule is mind-boggling. How at the advanced age, he would sleep 2 hours and 15 minutes a day. How sometimes, when prasadam wasn't available, he would just continue on. In New York City, in the early days of the movement, very few people were sometimes coming to his evening classes at 26 2nd Avenue. And he would go during the day to buy fruits and vegetables from the market to cook some foodstuffs. Now you're living in New York City. You have no means of income. And you're truly surrendered and living on the mercy of Krishna. And what he would do, he would empty the entire account, whatever few dollars he had, to buy bhoga, to cook for the Lord, and to nourish those who come for with prashad. But he had no idea whether anybody would leave a donation in the jar not for tomorrow's chapatis. How many of us are willing to sacrifice like that? But that's what Srila Prabhupada did. And he did this day in and day out. And of course, the Supreme Lord reciprocated. And I know when I was young, I used to wonder, why it took Srila Prabhupada so long to build this movement. Imagine if he had started in his 40s, we would have had 40 or 50 years of his. And later I realized his life is an instruction to all of us. He could have been successful from the day he was born, but the struggles he faced the setbacks he endured, the challenges and obstacles he overcame, it serves as an instruction to all of us. So Srila Prabhupada, we're extremely grateful to you for giving us these instructions and giving us this most merciful Shri Shri Radha Kunjvihari, Jagannath Baldev Sudamai, and Shri Shri Gauranitai, so that we can remain connected to our eternal Father and join you in your eternal Leela, serving the Supreme Personality of God. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnudaya Krishnastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhammayam Namaste Saraswati Devi Jani Nirvisesha Srivaya Paschatavadesha. So I'd like to follow up on the qualities that we were talking about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada nicely talked about his humor and his mysticism. Nitya Krishna Prabhu talked about his relentlessness and his patience. So, as I hope all of you read Prabhupada Leelamrita, if you haven't, it's a page turner. Please take it and read it, you won't stop. I just recently read Giriraj Swami's I'll Build You a Temple. And as my kids know, anytime I hear Prabhupada's Guru Puja, I can't help but tear up because of what Prabhupada did for all of us. So I want to relate a story that was told. It's the end of the second to last chapter in the book. It talks about Prabhupada's leaving his body, and I'm going to talk about Prabhupada's mercy. So this is a story from Srinaji Prabhu, who is actually the son of one of Prabhupada's disciples, who was a little bit not so taken by Prabhupada, not so initially, he wasn't so interested in the movement, but I want to share the story. This is when he took him to the train station. This is told by Srinaji Prabhu. The 28th of September 1977 was a very sad day. At about 4:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from Giriraj Swami. Crying, he said, "I want you to bring your big Dodge car." I had a huge American car with a back seat long enough to lie down in. Giriraj Swami said, "Prabhupada wants to leave his body." I said, "What?" I'd never heard anybody say that. Someone would want to leave their body. It sounded as if he wanted to commit suicide. I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean Prabhupada wants to leave his body? Where does he want to leave his body?" He said he wants to go to Vrindavan and he's leaving his body. He's going away and we have to take him to the train station. By that time, Prabhupada hadn't eaten for nearly 6 months. He was living only on juice and charnamrita, and his body was depleted. He had hardly any muscles and his veins were pressing on his bones. It was very painful to see him. Here was the person with whom I had fought and argued. Here was the person who was such a fine debater that he was like a lion. He could defeat anyone philosophically. But that morning, when I saw how very thin Prabhupada was, it reminded me of Krishna's description about Gita of a person withdrawing himself like a tortoise withdraws himself within his shell. So in Bombay, on the 28th of September 1977, Sri Prabhupada decided to leave, and for the first time, I cleaned my car. I didn't want Prabhupada to sleep in an unclean car. My wife arranged nice silk bedding, flowers and incense in it, and I drove to the temple. There Prabhupada was brought down from his quarters in a big basket. It reminded me of stories of Moses and Karna, who were both put in baskets. Devotees were crying, they were devastated. They were intensely feeling imminent separation from Sri Prabhupada. I was supposed to drive, and I felt like Akrura, the cruel person who took Krishna from the devotees. I was taking Prabhupada away from the devotees, but that was my duty, I had to do it. I drove, and next to me was the big Brahmana Swami, and next to him was the Krishna Goswami, who was Prabhupada's last secretary. And finally there was Giriraj Maharaj, who was such a huge car that 4 people could sit in the front. Prabhupada was lying in the back seat, and Upendra, his servant, was sitting on the floor of the car next to Prabhupada. Prabhupada's luggage was behind. Like a school teacher, Krishna Maharaj told me, "Don't drive fast, drive very slowly." The Bombay roads had potholes, and Prabhupada would be uncomfortable if I drove fast. I said, "Fine, we're going to
we are going to Bombay Central Station, and I asked, which trains are we going to catch? Someone said, Prabhupada is taking the Mathura Express to Vrindavan. It leaves at 11 a.m. I started to drive very slowly. From the back, the grandmother told me, Prabhupada wants you to drive faster. So I said, okay, if Prabhupada wants me to drive faster, I will drive faster. And I picked up speed. My huge car could really move. But the moment I pressed the accelerator, the Maharaj got very upset. He said, I told you to go slowly. What are you doing? I said, the grandmother just told me that Prabhupada wants me to drive fast. The Maharaj said, no, go slowly. So I slowed down. Within a minute, the grandmother again said, Prabhupada says, go faster. Why aren't you going faster? I thought, the person I have to serve is Prabhupada, so I will drive faster. I said to the Maharaj, you sort this out with Vendra and allow me to drive. We thought we reached the Bombay Central Station too early. Ram Tulsi, another devotee there, and I went to the station manager to get a wheelchair for Prabhupada to transport him from my car to the special cabin on the train. In my usual style, I asked the station master, is the Mathura Express going at 11 a.m.? He said, did you read today's paper? It leaves at 10:30. The timing had changed that very day. I looked at my watch and said, there are 5 minutes left. The train's leaving in 5 minutes. Ram Tulsi and I ran with the wheelchair. I told the station master, I will pay anything, but stop that train. Don't start it until I tell you. He said, what? I had never heard such a request. I said, there's a big team coming. A very holy person is going to leave his body in Vrindavan, and he has to be on that train. The station master said, leave his body? What do you mean? I said, just run with me. So we ran. This happened 20 years ago when I was 37. I told Giriraj Maharaj, the train is going a half hour early. He said, no, according to the timetable, it leaves at 11 a.m. I said, whatever it says there doesn't matter. The station master is going to blow his whistle and the train's going to go. We ran. Some of the devotees got Prabhupada's special cabin ready. It should have been air conditioned. It should have been an air conditioned one, but for some reason, the devotee had booked a non-air conditioned cabin. We took Prabhupada into his compartment just a few minutes before the train was about to leave. From 4:30 until 10:30 that morning, I had not any water or food. I was very thirsty. I bought a soda from the stand at the station when the grandmother came and said, Prabhupada wants to see you. I left the soda and went to the cabin, wondering, what is Prabhupada calling me? Why is Prabhupada calling me? Prabhupada said, come closer. I went very close to him. He said, thank you for driving me. I was very touched. Prabhupada was just about to give up his body, and except for this small service, I had done nothing much. So when the train in front of everyone, I offered my obeisances and caught Prabhupada's lotus feet. Tamal Krishna and others said to me, don't touch his feet. I said, no, this is it. This is my final moment I'll ever get. I said, Prabhupada, I surrender to you. You are my spiritual master. He put his hand in my hair and blessed me. He put pressure on his elbows, got up a little. He was smiling sweetly. The train started, and some of the devotees said, look, the train started, you better jump off. Otherwise, the next station is quite far away. Luckily, I jumped off the moving train and I watched it until the last car had left. I wasn't thirsty anymore. I didn't care for soda. Tears in my eyes, I got into my car, and lo and behold, there's Prabhupada's garland on the steering wheel. He had not forgotten me. That was the last time I saw Prabhupada, from 1971 to 1977. My memories are of fighting with him, debating with him, arguing with him. Finally, at the end, I surrendered. Hare Krishna.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my most humble obeisances as a dust of your lotus feet. All glories to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Happy 129th Reprince, Srila Prabhupada. To begin, I would like to beg for forgiveness in advance for my hindrance in speaking the language and words of your glorification. Srila Prabhupada, You are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's merciful representative. You are the perfect example of a leader. In fact, if it were up to me, I would put your name under the definition of a leader in every dictionary that exists in this world. As Srila Prabhupada said, we should never misunderstand under some confusion and bewilderment that we don't have all the facilities needed for complete protection at the feet of Srila Prabhupada and the ISKCON movement. Books, association, ISKCON, fan communities, and so much more. There's not a single thing we not giving us. Everything has been provided, and yet someone like me is not taking advantage of this once-in-a-million lifetimes opportunity. While walking through multiple heart attacks, you travel to a different continent on the Jaladuta by yourself, just to preach to the people of North America. Mahaprabhu said to Narad Muni in Sri Chaitanya Mangala Shidrakanda, even if the sinners reject religion or flee to foreign countries, I will send more Senapati Bhakta, my military field commanders, to go there and deliver them. Prabhupada, we use this word of transcendence to slash the grief that did fall in this material world. I offer my deepest gratitude to you. Thank you for giving me such amazing parents and a wonderful brother. Thank you for giving me the association of hundreds of devotees. Thank you for giving me a reason to continue living this life. I was hearing that once you said to your dear devotee of yours, so much endeavor in this material world, but when I take you back home, back to God, everything will be easy and sublime. Thy dear disciple, we should live. I thank you for not only your significant presence in my life, but also for giving me my favorite person in this entire material world, my dear spiritual master, His Holiness Indradana Swami Maharaj. I've been reflecting on the word renunciation. You said that renunciation does not mean changing a cloth color or shape. Renunciation means that I will not associate with anything which has no connection to Krishna. How can I apply that to my life? How can I take the example of my mother, Margaret Vyasa, a pure devotee who is not eternally at the Lord's feet, and apply it to every aspect of my life? In a letter to His Grace Mahananda Prabhu in 1970, he wrote as follows: no conscious prayers go in vain. They are transmitted positively. Any prayer that you offer to your spiritual master and superior spiritual master is conveyed to Krishna. No sincere prayers go in vain. So, Srila Prabhupada, on this sacred day, let this fallen soul offer prayer, keeping aside their countless anarthas for just a moment. I pray that you lead me to the Pushpa Canal that goes to Govardhan. I pray that at the end of this life, I am able to go to the only place in all the planets, universes, and galaxies of Lord Brahma's creation where there is such a Ananda. I pray that soon I am reunited with the most ideal example of what a parent should be like, my mother. Happy appearance day, Srila Prabhupada. I live my last life in this material world. I pay my most humble obeisances to the depths of your lotus feet, your spiritual granddaughter, Chamakala Vyasa.
Please. Anybody else, please? We have only a few more minutes. So come and sit here. We can save some time.
I didn't actually prepare anything, but dear Srila Prabhupada, thank you for the movement that you created. On your Vyasa Puja, I usually think back to where my life would be if you hadn't come to America. It would be in a very
Krishna. Just like when I prepare anything either, I see everybody's looking at their phone. I don't have my phone either, so I use ChatGPT. But just like she was saying, I had the opportunity to live in different parts of US and around the world. And Prabhupada has created a home all over the world. Like I was first in St. Louis, Kansas City, we were in Thailand, we were just traveling in Europe. So everywhere we go, there is a temple, there is devotee association, and that's only because of Prabhupada. And also I think I missed the story about Prabhupada's humor. I heard this once they were driving Prabhupada in Calcutta. And if you have driven in India, more than the brakes, the most important thing is the horn. You need to have the horn. Otherwise, you're going to have buffaloes, pedestrians, everybody, and they won't move on. So they were driving Prabhupada, and the horn was not working. So the driver was panicking, and then he told Prabhupada, the horn is not working. Prabhupada said, no problem. He told his servant, bring my plate and my spoon. So they got his plate and spoon. So he said, take the spoon outside the door with the plate, and then whenever the driver say honk, hit it. Ting, 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 ting. And then that worked out so good. And then the next day, the driver was saying that when they were driving in Calcutta, he saw other people doing the same thing, imitating. So, Jack, thank you. And, just from my personal experience, I can see I wouldn't even be alive if I would not take an association with the devotees and the temple. My lifestyle changed, everything changed, and it's only because of Prabhupada's mercy. So I owe my life to him. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, then we'll start Kirtan because we will be offering two Kirtan start. Kirtan. Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namati
Prabhu, continue with this.